So very early on, I got very interested in building different ways and to really change the living environment for us humans, because, you know, a building actually in a way should be operating like we do.
I'm interested in that balance between creativity and spontaneity, and actually something that's more mapped out to really unlock and find out, you know, the parameters of design and what that actually means throughout that design process.
Welcome to Creative Conversations on DesignTV. I'm Pam Jaccarino, Editor-in-Chief of Luxe Interiors and Design. Today, I'm thrilled to be speaking with admired decorator, author, and philanthropist, Charlotte Moss, whose 11th book, Flowers, is out today.
Oh,
and it's
yay.
a beautiful cover. So exciting. Welcome, Charlotte. It's so nice to see you.
Oh, it's great to see you, Pam, and I can't wait till we can actually do that and have a real official air kiss sometime, you know?
It's coming soon. Those vaccinations are rolling out. I know the last time you were on Design TV with me, we were in the throes of COVID. I feel like we taped maybe in April or May of last year. So I'm feeling very optimistic. I hope you are as well.
Oh, absolutely. Both vaccines behind me, I'm feeling optimistic.
Yeah, there's still people hurting, but we're hopefully we're taking everyone along with us. But let's segue into Flowers. And you know, it's so interesting. This is your 11th book. Why did you choose to write about flowers at this time?
You know, it was a couple things sort of came together, but one was, you know, I'm literally sitting with my publisher talking about next book, and I said, well, we could do an easy book, you know. He said, well, what's that? And I said, well, one that I've already photographed. And he said, what? And I said, flowers. I said, I've been photographing flowers for, you know, well over 10 years of just all the arrangements that I put around the house. And, you know, it's my way of cataloging life and keeping track of myself. And he said, great, let's do it. So there we were. And I have hundreds and hundreds of photographs. So it was easy to it was easy to put together the visuals, but yet it was difficult because we had to cull through so much and edit out beauties that I really loved. You know, it was like letting a child go or something. Please don't take that one out. You know, so that's how it all came about. And I think for timing, this book we got lucky with the timing. I mean, you know, my dad used to always say, you know, I'd rather be lucky than smart. And in this case, we got lucky because I think it's a subject that so many people can relate to. And look, we all love flowers, you know. You know, when delivery man arrives at the door with a bouquet from someone, I mean, that's the best.
And I think it's a simple pleasure. And I think we've all found that these little touches of nature and bringing them inside into our home office or our dining room it's like this little simple luxury. So I agree that the timing was just really so well planned. So I want to, you know, you've been photographing your flower arrangements for over a decade. There's so many beautiful ones in the book. And also I'm always pouring over your Instagram because you there as well. Talk a little bit about your arranging philosophy. I am someone who will paint a flower, but I'm I don't really have a lot of confidence when it comes to arranging. And you talk a little bit about in the book that there's sort of like two types of flower arrangers: that study the playbook, maybe more neurotic type of flower arrangers, and then the throw out the rule book type of arrangers that you describe. So talk a little bit about your philosophy when it comes to arranging.
You know, I think really one of the themes in the book is to suggest to people, to implore them to relax and to not think about what anyone's going to think or what. It's just to take the raw material, put it in a vase. And if it means you're just frozen with doing a mixed arrangement, then just take a bunch of tulips or a bunch of daisies and make them tidy. So that's not even arranging, that's just tidying them up and putting them in a vase, or a single blossom. The most important thing is just to have them and not to fear them. For God's sakes, they're flowers, and they are simple joy. So I think that, well, I hope that when people read the book, they will sort of drop their shoulders about it, because only a part of the book is about those mixed bouquets. The rest are pretty simple. And, when we did this book, we didn't go out and buy flowers and create arrangements to create a book. We sort of looked back and said, well, look what we did, and how can others maybe learn from this? And
yeah, my shoulders were dropped. It made me feel as though there wasn't so much pressure. I get a lot of these, arrangements sent to me, and they're just so artfully put together. But I love sort of that just loose feeling that you suggest that we take, and being playful and creative with it.
Yeah, and I literally will have some flowers, and then something's missing. So I'll just go out in the yard and I'll pull a couple strings of ivy, or, lady's mantle, or tomato leaves, and mix them in, because one, I love the fragrance, scented geranium, and just jazz it up a little bit. But again, it's not about all the arranging. If you fear it, put that as your ultimate goal, as the mixed bouquet. Start having single blossoms around the house. I think once you sort of get in the groove, you want to stay in that groove. Yeah.
You also say when you think about flower arranging, you think about it the same way you consider doing a room. Talk a little bit about some of those similarities for you between, when you're thinking about an interior, and also, putting your flowers together when you're in your sort of your sort of garden shed, and you're about to sort of put some flowers together. How is that process similar?
Well, I think you're always thinking about the raw material, the flowers, how to marry them with the right vessel, which is, possibilities are endless there. And thank God for that, because I think because there are so many possibilities, anybody can create their own style in the process. But, you have to consider things like color and balance. And although I will say that I'm a firm believer that any color can go in any room, because that's just it's like flowers in a big herbaceous border. I mean, the purple's next to the yellow and the orange and the red, and it all seems to happen and explode. And that's nature. So, any color can work, but sometimes you want to, you may want to consider the room, you may not, but you do have to consider the scale of the flowers and the vessel and the composition, how big and bold it is, or diminutive it might be. Where is it going to go, and what's appropriate? I think appropriate is and I hate that word because it does sound a little uptight. Appropriate, it sounds a little school.
Maybe it should be inappropriate flower arranging. That could be kind of fun.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah, and I think it's also, I think, one of the things to consider too is, where is it going on your, bedside table? Are you having a dinner, and how are people going to talk in or around, the arrangement? So what is its purpose in a way, even though the flower arrangements have a purpose other than just to bring us joy? I don't know.
Yeah, well, it's like the proverbial centerpiece in the middle of the dining room table being one big overwhelming something that no one can see over. I never really understood that anyhow, because one, it doesn't make sense. It's like table arranging number one. And two, the people that see it the most are the ones opposite. And everybody else down the middle of the table is seeing nothing in front of them. So that's why I like small arrangements going down the table.
So I want to go back to vessels and sort of, like what comes first, the vase or the flowers, number one, And also what, what type of vases or vessels does every home need? If you're gonna, if you really want to sort of, take on this flower arranging, what sort of the, the necessary, vital vessels that every house needs, would you say?
So the first one really makes a difference. What vessel, let's say I'm in the city and I've got, I'm going to arrange a table and I've picked out a certain number of vases, a certain type of vase. Then I might go out and find the flowers that are really going to suit that container because of their height or their tightness or whatever the criteria is. So then you're working backwards. Vessel, go find me a flower. But if you're walking around your garden, you're picking what you have. So you bring it in and you cut it and you look for the vessel that suits the flowers. And that could be anything, Pam. I mean, I have put really ordinary just things in a beautiful, empire porcelain vase, but I've also put them in a straw basket. So I like playing, making it more formal or elevating that simple flower. Or you just might find something and create that essential contrast of, that big bodacious flower arrangement in a simple basket you bought at a flea market. So I like playing opposites. I think they have a way of talking to each other that hopefully is a happy conversation. So when it comes to vases, look, I think, everyone should have some glass containers that are just straight up and down for holding those flowers that they're like recalcitrant children or something. They go willy-nilly, like tulips will do that, but they need support and little teeny nosegays for those simple things and a tall, skinny bud vase for the single Casablanca lily or something. So I think just having a little diversity, even if it's one of each to start, but I will guarantee you, once you start, everything becomes a vase possibility, and you can't stop.
That also makes it interesting, creative, so, you can, it's playful when you think about the different containers that you could use.
Right. And I think playful is a really important word to emphasize because play suggests joy and it should be joyous. You should have fun. You shouldn't be pulling your hair out. You should just be relaxed. I mean, for heaven's sakes, it is your own home.
Exactly. I love that you included in the book several notable women muses who made flowers an integral part of their lives. I thought that was such an interesting element to the book. Constance Spry, the legendary British floral artist, was one of the muses that you talk about, and she had a very democratic vision of flowers. And I was hoping that you could just talk a little bit about her and how sort of, why you chose her as one of the muses and how she influenced and influences your work.
Well, I mean, first and foremost, she just did as she pleased. Mm-hmm. She had a natural curiosity that sent her out into the woods. I mean, she was the original forager. To go out into the woods and find things that gave it reach and height and movement and everything. And so everything has possibilities. And I think that's what nature is. Nature is all about those possibilities. And that's why I think flowers in a home are, they're just optimistic, if you will. And so Constance just set the world on fire. Nobody ever done that before. When Pauline de Rothschild came along and started putting mossy landscapes down the middle of her table with grasses and branches, nobody had done that either. Now all the party planners do all sorts of amazing things. But back then, that really was radical. really radical. And so I like people that think out of the box. I love people that are intellectually curious, and then just, devil may care attitude. And then the rest is history for her.
Yeah, I feel like there's also like just this liberating quality, this freedom to how they express themselves, and it's
And
interesting.
permission. They give other people permission by doing that. And I think that is that's a really important thing in my book. But I think it was a really important people for some of these muses to do some of the things that hadn't been done. They gave other people permission to do it.
And you see that done today. I feel like they were such trend-setting women in some ways, because I do feel like we went through a period of time with flowers where it was very uptight. And now, there's so many interesting floral artists doing such crazy and imaginative things. I mean, I follow them on Instagram, and I'm just, I'm saving I'm saving their images. They're intoxicating and lovely, and there's so many creative ways and directions that you can go in. Also, in your book, you say that flowers have personalities.
Mm-hmm.
They do. And so I thought, if Charlotte Moss was throwing a fabulous dinner party, which flowers would you invite? And like, I can imagine you, like, I don't know if you do seating charts, but I thought like that could be kind of fun. Like, what would be your flower party, and who would sit where?
Well, let's just start with the rose, because everyone thinks they're difficult to maintain. So that could be your high maintenance chick. But at the same time, roses are very democratic. They like to be alone as a single, and they can go with anyone. So I see the rose as being your ultimate party guest, because you could place them anywhere, because they can go with anything. And then there are flowers like the iris that really likes to be alone. I think the iris is a loner. They grow in beds. Generally speaking, people mass them together. But all you really need is one of those incredible paper thin, beautiful bearded iris. And so that's maybe the diva of the party.
And they're not going to come as a +1. That's another thing.
No, but you're going to put that diva next to someone that's going to bring her down. And that might be just the daisy, or the carnation, something that everyone thinks is really ordinary, but is really special and down to earth. Colette wrote a great piece in her little book, Flowers and Fruit. And talking about she was anthropomorphizing this white Nicotiana, thinking she's the queen of the night, until she meets the tuberose. And then she describes herself as feeling like a kid glove having been tossed to the curb, because she'd been displaced by the tuberose. So they do have personalities, that's interesting. I'm going to take that a step further and play with that. Maybe I'll put that on Instagram later, Pam.
I love it.
You gave me a great idea. Thank you.
So we talked a little bit about, tables at spring. It's people are emerging again to, safely have people over and entertain. Describe your vision for a beautiful dining table scape. And we talked a little bit about, like, some people are drawn to like the single centerpiece, and others, it's a little bit more of a grouping. But what colors are you thinking about for a spring table? What do you think is something that is beautiful, at a table that you're going to dine at?
Okay. I think the palette comes from jewelry. So I see things like the paleness of opals, the green of peridot, citrine, orange garnets, lavender sapphires. I see that sort of, I won't call them Easter basket, because when you've got a great peridot, that really amps it up a little bit. But miniature tete-a-tete daffodils down the middle of the table. You know, they're petite, in moss, maybe all the way down the middle in a landscape, or individual pots for each guest that they could take home with them, you know, mossed up in little baskets.
Maybe I'll take a cue of and try to get that sorted for like my Easter dinner.
Well, and because they're at the nursery and all the flower shops have them, you know, at some point, but I see a landscape. I'm ready for a colorful jewel-like landscape down the middle of the table.
Okay, that sounds good to me.
Oh, good.
So you mentioned also in your book, which I thought was so interesting, and I really wanted to ask you about this, that in the early 70s, you were very struck by, I think it was an image or a poster of Edward Tican's Heavy Roses, which is, for people not familiar, it's a very painterly black and white photograph of roses in decay. And you say in the book that that image really lurks in your mind when you're in the rose garden. And you also write about the fact that flowers have so much to say and teach us after they've reached their prime. So I wanted to ask, what do you imagine, you know, talk a little bit about that photograph and why it's on your mind, and what do you imagine that these flowers, after they've reached their prime, what are they saying to us? What can we learn from them?
Well, when I bought that poster, I mean, that image has stuck in my mind since college when I bought it and, you know, put it in my apartment. It was just so robust and voluptuous, and you could almost smell those petals, but you knew that they were just giving it all they had until the very end. And I think that got me. But, you know, flowers are fleeting. You know, they're here and then they're gone until next season. And so I think in a lot of ways, they're just a lesson for life, a metaphor for life in a way, that to savor the moment, every moment, you know, when they're blooming. But even, I just love just big baskets of rose petals, you know, when they've all pooped out.
And I also think, you know, it's so interesting that as humans, we're such a, especially in America, we're such in a society that's drawn to youth. And, you know, you look at, I think that when you look at flowers, something that's so magical about them is there's a beauty in them. You know, when you first get them, there's a beauty in them when they're in decay. There's a beauty to them when they shed their blooms and sort of lay there, as you said, those petals on the floor. So it is something that we can learn so much about flowers, about life, as you say.
And even some flowers, when they're dying, if you will, when you put hydrangeas in a vase and you let the water evaporate, they will dry on their own. And so then they almost become a different flower. You know, they've got a different, you know, they take on different color, they take on a different texture and fragility. And so they become a whole nother flower.
You're so right. It's like they get a second life.
A second life. Yeah. Should we all be so lucky, I guess, right?
Should we all be so lucky? Should we all be so lucky? Well, let's see. There's one other question that I have, which, you know, you also talk about. My last question is, you've learned so much, you say, just from arranging flowers, that process for you, I get from you that it's just very relaxing. It's something that it's a passion of yours. You love it so much. Share with us, you know, what can we learn from just the art of spending time with flowers and sort of, you know, arranging them? What do you think that the people that are watching us today, you know, if you had to impart some wisdom to them, what would it be?
Well, you know, I think, again, it's almost another metaphor for life in a way, because, you know, it's about practicing. You know, when I'm in my flower room and I've got buckets and I'm staring at them thinking, oh, what the heck, and where are they going, and is this a single flower arrangement? Is this a bouquet? You know, it's about practicing. I mean, from early age, we all were told, if you practice piano, you'll be good. if you go to the tennis court and hit balls for hours, you'll be better. I mean, you're told practicing is really what's going to make you better at anything. So whether you're 7 or 70, it doesn't really matter. When I'm arranging, it's just a time for me to be by myself, to be, in my own head, so to speak, thinking about whether it's the arrangement or, it's almost meditative because you can reflect on the day. You can do so many things when you're just by yourself and can really focus. And that's what I do. And then other times, I don't want to think so much. I just crank up the music and fix a glass of wine, and that's a whole nother type of flower arranging experience. They're all different.
Well, I'm just going to go on record to say we need a Charlotte Moss flower arranging workshop. I will say.
Oh, Lord. No, no. You know what? I have to say, I have so many beautiful friends that do this for a profession, and they're genius. And, I'm doing this just because I enjoy. And I would just, if I had to say one thing to everyone out there listening to this, it's about practicing. It's just about doing it, like anything, really.
Truly, this is honestly, I have such phobia of like flower arranging. I get like really crazy. And your book really made me like take that edge off and feel like I can do this.
One of the things in the book is that that library that we did basically in the back of great books on flowers and flower arranging. There are some really, really good books that have come out in the last year and a half or 2 years on flower arranging, and they're all listed in the bibliography in that library list, because I went through my entire library and selected them. But I would say those are the best things to have around, because they've said it all about how to prep them, how to cut them, what goes with what.
Well, you've inspired me, and I'm going to hold up your book again because it's so beautiful. I think I'll probably be painting some of these images.
Oh, good.
I'll get out my watercolors and paint, but everyone, I encourage everyone to, buy Charlotte's wonderful book. It really is a gift at this time coming out of COVID, and it's like such a simple pleasure. So thanks so much, Charlotte. It's so nice to see you and be with you always.
Oh, good. Thank you, Pam. It was a pleasure being here.
Hi there, I'm Katherine Given, Senior Style and Market Editor at Luxe Interiors and Design Magazine. Thanks so much for tuning into our Collab Lab segment on DesignTV. So today, I am very excited to be chatting with masterful kitchen designer Mick DiGiulio, whose distinctive spaces never fail to inspire me, as well as Erin Hoover, who is the very talented design director for Kohler's luxury brands, including Callista, who are, of course, the makers of beautifully crafted plumbing for the kitchen and bath. Thank you guys both so much for being here.
Thank you, Catherine. Good to be here.
So today we're discussing your new collaboration, the Juxtapose Collection, which is a line of kitchen faucets. And I think they're truly so elegant. It includes one of my all-time favorite designs, the new semi-professional faucet, which I'm excited to talk about in a little bit. But let's just jump in. So if you don't mind telling us a little bit about how the partnership came to be, how you guys first connected. Mick, I don't know if maybe you want to start, because I know you've been working with Callista for a while, right?
Yeah, I have. I think it was more than 10 years ago, I started working with Rachel Kohler on actually one of her personal projects, her home. And we had a few meetings, and in one of the meetings, I remember her saying to me that, remember, we've got to use all Kohler in my house. And I said, of course. And then she was walking out of the studio and looked down at a sink that I had designed and she said, I really like that sink. And she said, but it's not Kohler. And then she looked up at me and she said, what if we hired you to design sinks, and then we could put a Kohler product, call it a Kohler product, and put that in the house. So that's how.
There you go. I love that. That's a pretty good story. And Erin, have you worked with Mick on some of his previous collections?
Well, the Juxtapose collection was the first project that I worked with Mick DeGiulio and his team on. And as he said, you know, it's been this wonderful organic process where it started with a personal project for Rachel Kohler, and then it's just grown from, you know, the Bachefior and the Multier and the Saltier sinks that were created in collaboration with Mick DeGiulio. And then now we have this wonderful Juxtapose semi-professional kitchen faucet collection, which we are so thrilled about.
So, you know, Mick, I'm obviously such a fan of your spaces. Erin, I'm sure you are as well. But what, you know, made you and Callista really want to collaborate with Mick on this?
Well, you know, I think one of the things that I've always appreciated about Mick's designs is that they come from a place of listening to the consumer, listening to his clients. So rather than focusing on an aesthetic style, he's really focused on lifestyle. And this is something that we do at Callista as well. We really want to know, how can the products that we design and create make people's lives better, more gracious? I mean, we say live artfully, and that's really what we think about. And I think that's something we really share with Mick.
And Mick, vice versa. You know, obviously you have worked with Callista for some time, but I remember chatting with you that, you know, they're such amazing innovators and engineers, and just, you know, talk a little bit about what you love about Callista.
Well, I've always loved Callista, loved Kohler products. And I started working actually with Kohler products in the 70s. And I just thought they were the just absolute best at design. And they really are founded in design. And I think that culture of design, of engineering, of durability is what drew me to their products even before I started working with them. So when I was asked to work with them on these designs initially for the 3 sinks, it was just fantastic because I could then draw on all of their engineering, all of their expertise, and we're talking about generations of engineering and expertise. And they were just so receptive to ideas. They never once said, here's what we want to do. We want to direct you in this direction or anything else. They really left it up to me. And it was really then fun to watch them getting a different perspective and then trying to work in that perspective with the engineering and true collaboration. Just really, really a lot of fun.
Oh, cool. So, you know, I know so much goes into a collaboration, into making each product, but I'm hoping you can both, you know, walk us through the process a little bit, especially for Juxtapose, you know, from really ideation to prototyping to production, finishing, you know, factories. We really want to know everything that goes into the collaboration.
Well, I mean,
loaded question.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and we are thrilled to share that. I think one of the things that makes the collaboration really easy is that, you know, we do have this longstanding relationship with Mick DeGiulio, and I mean, I think as he just mentioned, you know, it's really a dialogue, and we are really always very interested to hear Mick's point of view and what he thinks might be a good direction for us. So I think it always starts with that initial kind of, okay, so we have this beautiful suite of products. What do you think is the next thing that we should really be looking at?
So in the case of Juxtapose, I know, Mick, you know, we were talking a little bit earlier about how you wanted something to complement some of the larger sinks you were doing, or really just in general, you wanted a really professional faucet that was also nice looking, right?
Yeah, that's exactly it. So really early on, we started talking about developing a line of faucets that would marry with these sinks. Mm-hmm. And so it did take years. And watching how Kohler and Callista go through the steps that they know so well of introducing a product. And if you back up from the point of ideation, starting with concepts. We started, more the mile high kind of idea, where concepts go to modeling, they go to renderings, they go to, and when I say modeling, that's on paper, but then the models, prototypes are created. And all of this takes a long time because each one of us, the engineers and marketing team, myself, we're looking at it critically, each concept, and thinking about how do we refine things each step of the way. How is this unique, or is it not unique, or how will this fit into the whole program? So it takes a while, but it's really a fun process, and it gets everybody thinking in different directions. And through this process, working with Kohler and Callista, I learned so much just about the engineering and the marketing and the varying aspects that goes into every single product that they put out. So it's a lot of work, but fun work.
So now, you have this idea. What's next? Prototyping, production. Erin, walk us through that a little bit.
Sure. So I think, to Mick's point, you go through several rounds of ideation and concept, and with the idea of constant refinement. We're also, as we have these ideas about the product, not only what it looks like, but how it functions, that's where I think this pipeline of innovation that Kohler and Callista have really comes into play. Because there were several things that Mick was very interested in having the faucet do. So we were able to sort of look at the different technologies that we have available at Kohler and say, well, we like these different spray functions. Could we maybe integrate these? How about how the hose actually operates? Do we want to put some kind of shield that would reduce the noise when you're moving the spray head around? So that's the other part that starts to come into play, where we have access to, as Mick said, all of this engineering experience, but also all of these interesting technologies that we're developing. So we start to integrate those, and then, as Mick says, they start to take form. So we start to have actual, 3D models. We start to have renderings. We start to have actual visual, sort of more refined products that we can start to really understand. And then there's also a phase where we start making physical prototypes. So we can actually test them out. For example, there was a magnetic docking element for the spray head, and that really had to work beautifully, seamlessly. You didn't want it to sort of not exactly connect, when you were finished with the spray head. So, testing out a lot of these things. And then the other part of it, which is really exciting, which is also something we're really thrilled about with Juxtapose, is finishes. So we really wanted to explore different finishes, mixing finishes. So we have several mixed finish options for Juxtapose that we're very excited about. So there's all of that that's going into it. So you're just sort of working through all of these different elements until finally you have this beautiful product that you can then, present to our wonderful audience of consumers and, the design community.
What a process. So, I find that even with something like magazines or with a lot of our editorial stories and shoots, the best products are really a result of this creative collaboration, right? Meeting of the minds, you have this push and pull. Do you find, or did you find that you guys were really aligned or on the same page? I mean, Erin, I know you mentioned refinement. There's probably a lot of back and forth, but do you guys find that you produce sort of the best work when collaborating with others?
Oh, absolutely. I am a firm believer that if you have a group of people who are working towards a goal with a diverse set of viewpoints, a diverse, sort of they're coming at it. So the engineers will sometimes come at, like we're thinking, oh, well, we should do it this way. And they're like, oh, no, what if you did? Of course, we have the advantage of having Mick DiGiulio, who is an industry leader, has so much experience, has done so many projects, having him come in and really speaking to it from his particular point of view as a designer, but also from all of the insights that he's gained working with his clients. Like that's tremendous. It really allows us to just refine that product and make it, just the best it can possibly be. So yeah, I'm a huge believer in the collaborative process, and it's fun too. I mean, it's
I agree, right?
points. Yeah.
Nick, what do you think? I want to hear your input here.
Well, absolutely. You know, the process, the collaboration is fun, drawing on ideas from each other, following up. Let's say if I mentioned something that, you know, it could be nice to do this. If we did this part on the faucet and whatever, they would then always say, okay, let us think of that. And then we'd meet again and they'd say, you know, you brought this up, and everything is always addressed in that process. So nothing falls on deaf ears, so to speak. And as Erin said, that, you know, what I've always done is worked with clients. I work with the people that, you know, their kitchen, and I hear from them what they like about faucets, what they don't like about faucets. And then I start thinking about my use of a faucet, everything from cleaning up around the faucet, where you like to move the lever, how you like something to look. And naturally, from all of that experience, then I'm able to feed that to Callista and Kohler, and then they'll sometimes reaffirm and say, you know, that's exactly what, you know, we see. We're working on that same idea. So I think we were always on the same page as far as the product and where we were headed. There was never a big diversion. I think on the sinks originally, that was a little bit different, where some of these ideas were just kind of off the wall. And I thought they're going to think I'm completely crazy on this. And they didn't. You know, they embraced the ideas right away. But, you know, at no point did Kohler or Callista ever say, well, that is absolutely crazy, and, you know, we just can't do that. They always went back saying, you know, this could be good. This could be different. You know, we've done this. So I think that feeling that part of it, then I felt like I gave a part of the process that, as Erin said, a perspective that is coming through me, but it's really the things that I'm hearing from my clients and other designers, plumbers, everyone else. So it's really a lot of things in the process. It's not just the client and the marketing, but it is every person that touches this along the way, to the tradespeople, to the drillings in the countertops, and how will people react to this. So everything is so carefully considered.
Yeah, there really is so much that goes into it. But Mick, you mentioned your clients, you obviously work very, very closely with them. Do you draw inspiration from that? You know, I find right now that, you know, getting inspired is a little tough. Maybe it's just me, I'm homebound, I'm not out and about. And I always feel like, you know, the Callista products are very inspired and are very original. So I just kind of want to hear from you both a little bit, like, how do you find inspiration? Is it just being out and about? Is it talking to people? You know, I'm just curious to kind of get your perspective.
Erin, go ahead.
Well, for myself, you know, it very much is about sort of just seeing how people live. And I'm very lucky. I live in New York City. So the city is inspiration to me always. But probably my favorite place to go for inspiration in New York is the Metropolitan Museum, just because you can see everything from Egyptian art to decorative objects by Tiffany and Fabergé to armor to, you know, 19th century paintings. So that's kind of when I need to recharge my inspiration batteries, I like to go there.
Ditto. Yeah. Mick, what about you?
Yeah, well, like Erin says, travel and just being exposed to so many different things is great inspiration. And I think, you know, as I've gotten older and, you know, done design for a long time, my feeling is that we have these antennas that we keep developing, and the antennas of getting ideas or being inspired become stronger, because there's so much accumulation of ideas and things that we're exposed to. I do think that my clients are #1 inspirations. And, you know, an inspiration is a problem. It's a challenge. It's identifying a challenge many times of how can we have a faucet that is elegant, but it's still highly functional, that it cleans up well, that it's ergonomic, and it's really identifying these initial challenges, and they become the inspiration. And, you know, the old saying, form follows function, right? I think in terms of, the function really creates the form. And really that's what we tried to do on the sinks and the faucet, is that thinking about the faucet and the sink is what are the functions around it, and how can we stay true to the function and keep it simple rather than creating something that's a decorative piece. So it's really a functional piece, and the sinks as well, driven by the idea of what happens around those fixtures.
Well put. So I want to get to the pieces now. I really want to walk through sort of what's in the Juxtaposed collection. I know there are a few designs, including, a semi-professional faucet, I believe a pot filler, a bar faucet, but can you kind of just walk us through and maybe even touch on some of those, tech aspects you mentioned, Erin? And, I just kind of want to walk through the collection. Maybe start with the semi-professional faucet, if you don't mind.
Well, I mean, that's really, to me, that's really the star of the show. That's really sort of they're all beautiful, but that one really is the standout. And that's the one I think, to Mick's point, form follows function, and the form is beautiful, as is the function. So a lot of focus went into, I think, just how the product felt, how the product was used. So the handle is very ergonomically designed. It's very easy to switch between the 3 spray options. So you have aerate, boost, and sweep spray. So these are all, again, with a lot of input from Mick about, what he was seeing when you're starting to have these larger sinks, and, how people want to use a semi-professional faucet. So a lot of thought went into that. Again, the magnetic docking system that I talked about, when you finish using the spray head, it just clicks back into place. And then, that sort of sound reducing shield that was placed inside, so that when you're sort of moving the hose around, you're not getting a lot of noise. Again, it should be sort of this very nice experience to use this. And then, the beautiful stainless steel coil that goes around the hose, which is functional, but also creates such a beautiful visual texture. And also, I think this is one of Mick's signatures. He is always doing these really interesting things with metal textures. So you'll see in the Bashpure sink that he designed with us, that beautiful hammered stainless steel. And then this, likewise, we have like this beautiful sort of texture along with mixed metals, which I think is another signature that, Mick really pioneered this. I mean, we're all doing this now, but I think Mick was onto the mixed metals way before, the rest of us were. And then, we sort of built out the rest of the collection with the, soap and lotion dispenser, with the bar faucet, and with the pot filler. So these are all sort of, part of the suite. And it really is about this idea of building out the whole collection. So you have the sinks, and then you have this faucet collection that really complements it.
And I remember, Mick, I think you mentioned aspects like boost and sweep spray, which I was, very interesting, and will certainly help, I feel like, anyone clean dishes, right? But can you walk us through some of these, tech innovations that you guys implemented?
Sure. Well, the idea really I brought to Kohler and Callista was, to have strong performance that we've got, especially in the case of the Multier sink. It's a longer sink, and the Soltier, they're single bowl sinks. So they're workhorses in terms of the sink type. They're for people who use these sinks. They clean and they do the preparation around it. And part of that is the performance, being able to spray one end of the sink so you can get all the things out of the sink down into the disposal. So, I say I brought this idea. Well, they've been working on this already for years. And they said, well, we've got, this really cool technology. It's called Boost. And the ability to hit the button on the end of the faucet and increase the pressure, which is so critical to
so smart,
take, reach those parts of the sink and spray things down. So they had it going already. And I was able just to really come in and step in and be able to incorporate that as part of these products. But that was the performance part of it. And that's something they're thinking of all the time. It's not just, this time. That's something they're working on constantly.
And then Erin, I know you mentioned sort of the mixed metals and the finishes that you used with this collection, which are really beautiful. I particularly love the matte black, I think it's called. But Mick, do you also want to touch on that? Like, do you find you're using, darker finishes a lot in kitchens? Is it really just a range? But I would love to hear sort of how you guys finalize some of those finishes and mixed metals, as Erin said, for this collection.
Yeah, well, Catherine, I think, it's really down to, you've heard the expression, the personality-driven kitchen, and kitchens specifically for people. Well, that means really giving people variations and different ideas that they can choose from. Instead of saying, this is, we do this and these two finishes. It's thinking about designers who are working with darker finishes, moodier kind of feel to spaces, and is it possible to fill that market of what people want to complement? So it's that idea, and the idea of mixing the metals, as you talked about and Erin talked about, doing finishes that are unique. I think a lot about the fashion right now. It's everything goes. There's nothing that's wrong. Things are very expressive. They're very layered. And what we may have thought in fashion 30 years ago, you can't do this or you can't do that. Everything goes. And I think having that concept, and along with this layered idea goes the precision. And that's part of the technology that Kohler and Callista is able to do, the technology of doing really precise details in the metalwork. And one thing I thought of for the handle was thinking about it more like a watch, more like a fine jewelry concept. So if you really see the end of the photo or say the end of the faucet, looking at that almost dial to the round element and the more elegant hand that is the lever for the control lever. That was really the concept around it. So the word that we all used in the collaboration was elegant, that we wanted something, because there are a lot of professional kinds of faucets that sometimes they just don't work in an elegant kind of space. And we wanted that market between just your, a standard kind of faucet to a very industrial, somewhere in between, that had this elegant feel.
I think this is an example of Mick really identifying a consumer desire that we might not have been aware of. So, he sort of identified this white space where, there are these, sort of industrial looking faucets and performing faucets. And then you have, sort of residential caliber ones that aren't going to have the same performance. There's this white space where we could create something that basically blended the two aspects and, do it in an elegant way, do it in a way that you would want to put in a kitchen that was very, upscale, had beautiful materials, beautiful design. So just that's another example of how Mix Insights can help drive our innovation.
Yeah, I completely agree. You want something that complements your beautiful space, right? I mean, as we all know, we're spending so much time in the kitchen, especially right now. It's really evolved to be much more than where we just eat and cook, right? It's really the heart of the home. So I'm curious to hear a little bit about how, your design, I guess you really just touched on it, Erin and Mick, but you want your design, your products and and even the spaces you design, Mick, to accommodate, the way we're living today. Can you just touch a little bit on that? How we are living today really in the kitchen, and how you want to, and how, Callista approaches, creating products, and you, Mick, also spaces to really, to really fit into this very evolving kitchen space.
Well, as Erin had touched on earlier about lifestyle, that the lifestyle today is very informal. It's very casual, and it's very open and connected. So people want to be together. There were the old kitchens of old, which were compartments basically. You had a dining room, you had a kitchen, you had the family room, And now people really want to stay connected, and they want open areas with a lot of natural light. And so that lifestyle trend is the most important trend that is really driving our products today, all kinds of products, and how we can create these elements that fit within these open and connected spaces and don't look necessarily, and it's been talked about as kind of an unkitchen look about kitchens now. And it's true, kitchens could be almost any room in the house because we're doing refrigeration with armoires, we're doing different kinds of appliances that are more integrated, dishwashers especially. So you really can't identify some of these elements that are in a kitchen as a kitchen. And even proportions, we're trying to change what a proportion looks like because there's a lot of massing in kitchens, and the massing gives it away as a kitchen. So however we can break down some of those elements is really one of the things we work on, but it's very connected, open, very casual.
You know, what about you, Erin? Are you always thinking about, you know, from a product standpoint, how people are living with and experience your products? And I guess obviously that has evolved over time, right?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more with what Mick is saying about the kitchen. You know, the way I think about it is it's become an all-day space. So it's not just, you know, you used to go in the kitchen, you know, I'm going to make breakfast and then I leave the kitchen. Now it's an all day, all function, because you might be sitting at the kitchen island eating breakfast and then you might be working there. Your children might be, you know, having a meal and then, you know, playing with their friends in some part of the kitchen. So it just becomes, as Mick is saying, like really the center of the house. And very much, you know, we see people integrating things like soft seating, artwork, bookshelves. You would not have necessarily thought about this as being appropriate for a kitchen, but I think it's that continuing evolution and also just the integration of technology into the kitchen. So, you know, we're at Callista, we're always thinking about this. We're always thinking about, you know, how are people using that space? How can what we design make that easier, better, more beautiful for them?
Well,
Certainly going to be interesting, right, to see how the kitchen space even evolves even more. But I'm curious, can you guys, is there another Callista Mick DiGiulio collab on the docket? Anything, you know, I'm sure there is. I can't wait to, you know, see what else you guys sort of cook up. But, you know, what are you thinking? What's next?
Well, I mean,
anything you can share?
Speaking for Callista, I certainly hope so. And one of the things that I would say about working with Mick is that Mick is never at a you know, he never lacks for ideas. So I'm sure that there's something else that he's thought about that we should probably get working on. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Right. Yeah, thank you, Erin. I am too. I think it's a great collaboration, a great partnership, and already, you know, we trade little ideas here and there, snippets, and so I sure hope there will be some future things, and I know there will. So thank you.
Well, it's such a beautiful collection. I really so appreciate you both taking the time, you know, to talk about Juxtapose and really all that goes into it. And as I said, we really can't wait to see what's on the docket, you know, for the next Callista Mick DiGiulio collaboration. But to our viewers, appreciate you tuning into Design TV, and we'll see you next time. Thank you both.
Okay, thank you, Catherine.